CNN original series Death Row Stories returns this Sunday with an all-new season, and this week, the murder of two young boys that shocked a community and a state and really tore an entire family apart.
I got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Devin and Damon are dead, and Darlie Lynn might be dying. And I just started screaming.
Darlie was rushed to Baylor University Medical in Dallas and immediately taken into surgery. The necklace Darlie had been wearing at the time of the attack was so deeply embedded in her throat, it had to be surgically removed. But it also saved her life, stopping the knife less than 2 millimeters from her carotid artery.
The surgeon who treated Darlie, he took my hand and he said that she was lucky to have survived this.
When Darlie awoke from anesthesia, 2 detectives from the Rowlett Police Department were waiting to interview her.
The story was an assailant was in there. She woke up and a man was over her and she started fighting with him. And she really wouldn't give any type of description because she said she couldn't remember. She couldn't remember his face and couldn't remember anything about it.
At the crime scene, detectives tried to gather pieces to a murky puzzle.
I think the Rowlett Police Department was entirely overwhelmed, and they didn't know what to do. The way they were handling evidence, the way they were trying to take pictures. They have a camera guy going through there while others were picking up evidence, and it was just absolute chaos.
Joining me now is Alex Gibney, the director, actually the executive producer of the entire Death Row series, and has his hand in a lot of the episodes themselves, along with Stephen Cooper, who's live from Dallas, who's the attorney for Darlie Routier. That's the inmate still on death row, awaiting a new round of DNA testing. Stephen, I want to start with you if I can, because I'm going to tell you right now, I covered this case. I was there 2 decades ago in Dallas when this happened, and I watched a detailed accounting of all of the evidence that was presented in court, and I was pretty darn convinced that she was guilty of this. And then I watched this episode and I saw all of the errors, like 30,000 mistakes in the trial transcripts, a court reporter who pleaded the fifth, detectives who pleaded the fifth after they had taken video that didn't enter into the trial when another video that was adjacent to it was almost the deciding factor for this jury. This is remarkable stuff. I don't understand how there isn't a new trial in this case.
Well, certainly it's something we've been asking for 19 years now, almost 18 actually. But all these things that you just recited, plus many more, have shown over time to be really accurate, and the presentation of the state at the trial was inaccurate.
I want to show a photograph, if we can, something that I saw in the episode that I'd never seen before, and it's a photo of Darlie Routier's arms, terribly bruised up. This is her husband Darren at a memorial site. The surviving child was running behind him. That's the slash that is on Darlie's neck. These are some of the bruises that were on Darlie. That is the photo in question. An unbelievable injury on her arm that I had not seen heretofore. And Alex, I'm going to get you in on this. This is the kind of evidence that just makes my skin crawl, because so much other evidence was trumpeted during that trial. And that's the kind of thing that I think if jurors would see, they'd have a really tough time thinking that those were self-inflicted injuries. They believed it with the knife attack on the neck. But seeing the extent of the other injuries, was this what sort of turned you on to this case? Were there other things that were gripping for you in choosing this particular case to feature?
Well, I mean, that was one of the many things that turned us on to this case, but also I think the prosecution really leaned very heavily on some emotional appeals and also brought into evidence this video of a kind of remembrance of her son, where they were shooting some silly string around as if she wasn't taking it seriously, which was evidence, supposed to be evidence that
here it is here. I think they ran it in court in the case about 9 different times.
They ran it over and over and over again.
And I can tell you, for being a local media person in Dallas at the time, that ran on the news nonstop. This is what most people remember about Darlie Routier. 8 days after the murders of her 2 boys, there's a happy birthday party at their graves with silly string.
That's right. What they didn't show was the very moving, weeping portion of that video prior to this, which is another indication that jurors really didn't see the whole story.
Stephen Cooper, how do you deal with that sort of thing? How do you deal with a video that police took but then won't testify to? They plead the fifth about this. How do you introduce this and somehow try to make a case when you don't deal with the jury in appellate issues?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the trial lawyers did have an opportunity to introduce the 2-hour memorial service to the jury, and they declined the opportunity and just put on testimony saying that it took place. Of course, the old adage, one picture is worth 1,000 words. They should have shown this memorial service to counteract the so-called silly string. The whole premise of the silly string video coming in at guilt or innocence is, as the state said when they offered it, this was to show her true character, as if a video of any type, where there's not some verbal admission, is going to tell the jurors in this case, that my client murdered her children. It was just absurd. And of course, this whole case was, it's a trite phrase, rush the judgment. This was a June 6th of 96 offense. They were picking a jury 4 months later, with evidence starting 6 months later. And as you've seen, seen in this, you'll see in the show, this is a very complicated case, a lot of blood evidence that was never analyzed by the defense.
Well, I have to leave it there, but there is so much more to this story, and I don't know if Darlie Routier is guilty or innocent of this murder, but I do know that there are enough errors and questions that, once again, I think if it's the death penalty, you got to be perfect if you're going to play God. Alex Gibney, Stephen Cooper, thank you. Season 2 of Death Row Stories premieres this Sunday on CNN at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, everyone. My colleague Brianna Keeler's in for Wolf, and she starts after this quick break.